All right, everyone, welcome to the Expat Woman Show. I'm here with Lisa R. Mitchell, the principal of Living a Global Lifestyle. My name is Nyna Caputi. I'm the founder and CEO of the Expat Woman, a global platform for women living abroad to help them survive, thrive, and make connections and be successful in the country they're living in. And I'm also a LinkedIn coach and trainer. And I'm excited because besides having Lisa on this show, I'm also testing out StreamYard for the first time on Instagram. And I want to see how it goes because StreamYard recently released this feature where you can stream on Instagram. And though I'm a LinkedIn coach and trainer, I'm very active on LinkedIn for the Expat Woman, which is my other business. I do use Instagram, and I love that with StreamYard, you can stream to multiple channels. So this time I'm streaming on my personal LinkedIn profile. I do have the Expat Woman LinkedIn page, but testing it out on my LinkedIn profile as well, because I know a lot of my connections and followers are expat women. And today's topic with Lisa Mitchell is really hot. It's really important and essential if you're living abroad or you plan to move abroad. But so without further ado, I'd love for you, Lisa, to introduce yourself, share a little bit about your expat journey and what you do. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Nyna. Thank you for having me. I'm always willing to be a test case for anything. So my name is Lisa R. Mitchell, and I'm the principal of Living a Global Lifestyle, a living lifestyle brand and community for expats, digital nomads, and global travelers. And I help people live their best life abroad, especially as it pertains to those finances, which is always a key part of living a global lifestyle. I'm a recovering international banker. I was an international banker for many years, focused on people who live a global lifestyle. It's the majority of the banking that I did. I'm also credit trained as well. So, made loans, and I'm clear about the challenges that people have when they move abroad about credit and all their finances in general. My expat journey, wow. I've only always, even from a kid, wanted to live overseas and
Principle
work
of Living a
abroad.
Global Lifestyle. My name is Nyna Caputi. I'm the founder.
So that's all I've ever wanted to do. And when I was 21, I went abroad, and next thing you know, I was living and working in London on the version of their Wall Street. And then I went to business school where Thunderbird, where only people who want an international career go. And I was like, yes, that's me. So that's what I've done. And I've lived in Vietnam, I've lived in China, and I've lived in London twice. So
That's
that's
wonderful.
Mhm.
Sorry, suddenly there was this noise in the background. I was actually testing to see if it was streaming live on Instagram.
Oh,
I
okay.
was streaming.
I know. Yeah,
It's like,
not to, because you'll get the replay. It's okay. It's all
yeah,
right.
I know. Like I just want to get it right. But anyway, and that's what we do, right? We learn as we go. And
That's great.
so, Lisa, I love what you call yourself, a recovering financial expert
Recovering
expat, and
international banker. Yeah,
oh, sorry, recovering international
that's
banker.
okay.
And yeah, and I think it has really played a role in what you do today and, how
Yes.
you support other expat women. So, there's so many questions I have about of financial planning, whether you're starting your expat journey or you move to a new country. So, do you want to very briefly share some tips for women who are planning to move abroad or who've already moved abroad, and how they can plan that financial journey? And also, if you can briefly touch upon credit, how important it is to have I guess the right credit score, if you will, or if you
Mm,
don't, what do you need to do?
okay, no problem. So, finances, even after I've been doing this for like 30 years, is still the forgotten thing when people are moving abroad. And of course, it's one of the most essential things. If your finances don't go right abroad, it can all go kaput. So, in preparing yourself, people go, oh, well, my budget. You need more than a budget. You need a financial strategy. And in order to have a financial strategy, you need to know what your financial goals are. Like some people go abroad and they're like, I want to save $100,000. Okay. Well, how are you going to get there? Right. Or some people say, well, I don't know, I'm just going to stay a year and I'm going to bring $50,000 and we're going to see how it goes. Whatever your financial goals are. But you have to know, we talked about earlier, what's your number? I always ask people this: What is your number? What are your going to be your remaining financial obligations in your home country? And what are your potential financial obligations? This is the number one question I get, Nyna. How much money should I take abroad? Well, I don't know. Nyna may take 10,000. I may take 40,000. It depends on what your financial life is. Everyone's number is different. So you have to know those things, what your potential expenses. And then I always say add another 20, 25% to that. And that when people see that, I actually have someone doing a workbook for me and everything. They go, wow, that's a big number. I just want to move overseas with $5,000 or $1,000. Okay. If that's your financial goal and you want to wing it, go ahead. I think there's a time and place, maybe when I was 21 years old. But even then, I always knew about income. I was working abroad, right? Always working abroad. What's your income? What are your sources of income? This is where people peter out. Post-pandemic, right? Pre-pandemic, the two most important things, successful life abroad, really, immigration, right? And money. So now immigration, there are digital nomad visas coming out of the woodworks. So now it's still money. So you have to have a financial strategy, a starting point. You wanted me to talk about credit. And I could tell you the stories that I hear expats talking about credit. And again, the bad actors are US citizens, because in America, money doesn't make the world go round. Credit does, right? In other countries, credit is important, but there are a lot of different rules. So number one, I just hit on the credit rules in other countries are different. We had talked about the UAE. You don't pay your credit in the Middle East, you can get locked up, right? In the US, we don't really have debtor's prison or anything like that anymore. So that's something key. You can't just, oh, well, I'm not going to pay it. So whenever you're moving abroad, first of all, you should know, okay, what are kind of the credit rules? Number one thing I used to see I want a credit card in China. I'm like, really? Can you read Chinese? I couldn't even read the application. So why are you getting a local credit card in any foreign country you don't understand maybe the language, you don't know the parameters. Say what you want to say about credit in the United States. We have a lot of issues, but we do have a lot of rules and regulations around credit that other countries don't have. Okay, governing credit, what you can do, what you cannot do, what you can take into account. Other countries may not have that. I think it is in China where they have a social credit scoring system. Other countries, they don't look at past debts. Other countries, they may still take race and gender into account. I actually advise people not to get credit in a foreign country. I just think it's too many hassles. The issue is that usually credit scores do not travel. And that's where people, and I'd have client after client would go, well, in my home country, I make, I have a lot of money and I have a lot of assets. And I came to the United States, I can't even get a credit card because they don't meet the criteria. Maybe they don't have their social security number, or they have what's called as a thin file. They don't even have a US credit history, a file that can be scorable, right? You need to be able to be scorable. So this is something, again, that's one of the things we talked about, looking at a country's financial system before you move to that country. This is probably the key thing that's really, really hard. I mean, you could research in the United States, but it's a hard concept because Americans, like one article I saw, we're obsessed with our credit score. And you don't have that in other countries. You just don't. So that's a tough one for people to understand. Can't hear you.
I didn't think about the credit card, about not getting a credit card when you move to another country, because you just assume, okay, I'm living in this country, I'm going to get that credit card, so I'm not paying all that fees. When you use a US, like if I move to another country and I use a US credit card, I'd be paying those international fees and transaction fees
My
and all that.
God, Nyna, you
What?
sound like your perfect client. Obsessing about fees. Go find yourself a credit card. You sound like you're my perfect client. I got to work with you in January. Who cares? Seriously, people are, and this is seriously in America, the obsession with fees. Go to your financial institution, tell them you lead a global lifestyle. Do they have a financial credit product so that you don't have to pay any fees when you're abroad? If they
Does
don't,
that,
then yeah, that's a
sorry to
that's a,
interrupt.
no, that's a key one. You're my, oh, Lisa, I don't want to pay any fees. Fees. Here's a little secret: banks, especially retail banking, make their money off of fees and balances. Okay, so when people, including my own family members and good friends, I don't want to pay any fees. I'm like, it's kind of a cost of doing business, kind of. But
Mm.
seriously, go to your financial institution and say, hey, I'm living a global lifestyle. I travel a lot. I have to go back and forth to visit relatives. Do you have a product where I don't have to pay a fee? If they don't, then find a credit card from another financial institution.
Very, very useful advice. And yeah, I'm not planning to move abroad, hopefully, at least for the time
But
being.
you
So,
can practice
but I was
on.
just thinking, yeah, I do. But I was just thinking about in terms of, if I was to move abroad, that would be my fear. And you said that's what most of your clients
A lot of them.
worry about, right? So that's
Yeah,
really helpful to know that
yeah,
it's better to do that than worry about using a credit card in the country you've moved to, especially as you said, there are all kinds of issues. So my next question is,
mhm,
in terms of investment, because a lot of people do want to invest either in the country they live in or the country back home where they're originally from. And because financial planning also involves investing and being strategic
mhm.
with your investments. So would you touch upon that and give us some tips for
Sure.
those who are expats?
Sure. So cross-border investments can be very, very challenging, especially when we're dealing with the US. There are a lot of rules and regulations around it, specifically around pooled investments, which call like a mutual fund. And again, the prevailing thought is that two things: they were made for corporations, and the other thing, oh my God, if you're investing overseas and you must be trying to hide something, you must be doing something. So you need to figure out what your financial goals are, and then you need to sit down and speak with someone who is skilled and licensed and has experience dealing with people who live a global lifestyle, right? Who may become a permanent resident of, I don't know, most countries you can become a permanent resident in 5 years, but you still have assets in that country. So you know what rules and things that you can do. Another thing is expats don't do that. And then what the famous story, I always tell in China, a friend of a friend, she's like, oh, I went to online to trade. I'm not going to say the company, and I couldn't. And I'm like, China has like the biggest firewall. You think this major investment firm is going to let you do that, even with the VPN? And financial companies are getting savvier and savvier because of the fraud. They can tell where you are, right? So that's not, maybe that strategy worked before, but you really need a strategy. Like, for instance, I like to trade, right? I have my E-Trade account. I have my other stuff, but I like to do that. If I move to blankety blank country, is that something I'm going to be able to do? And people don't
Mm.
really think about it until, again, you're sitting in front of your computer and you want to buy some Apple stock, and then you realize that you can't. But you need to have a strategy. Your investments, that's your retirement. We talked about before. I have a friend, she's like, investments scare me. So she's going to save her way to wealth, which is
Mm.
fine. And that's part of her culture, and that's okay. Everyone is different. But people need, I mean, there's investments when you move. As a matter of fact, I don't think I'll do it this year, but next year, as I'm thinking about where I want to move next, and I know I'll sit down and have a financial consultation, and I'm probably like what, maybe 2 years out, whatever. So I can start planning on how those things are going to go. People usually don't plan for it, and then they go, "Oh,
Mm.
I can't invest anymore," or oh, there's an issue currently, as I think I mentioned before, with financial institutions closing accounts, closing brokerage accounts as well, and then you get a letter. You have 60 days to liquidate, or they liquidate for you. What are you going to do? So you need to plan for that. You need to be researching and think about that, and have your feelers out and be in groups and go to the organizations that support expats in your country, so you have a keen idea. You actually don't want to be sitting in front of your computer in a foreign country, and the Apple stock or whatever stock has dropped, and you want to buy low, sell high, and you can't. You don't want to do that.
That's really valuable advice, Lisa. I just want to welcome all those who are joining us live. If you have any questions or you want to introduce yourself, do go ahead and do so in the comments. We'd love to hear from you as we continue this conversation about financial planning for your expat journey abroad. Another thing I wanted to talk about, which I know a lot of people don't consider in financial planning, is, you know, we talk about emergencies like things like COVID and stuff, but what about if there's a death of a family member or your own death? Like, how do you prepare for that? I know it's a topic that's hard to talk about, but I think, so many people, I've heard of couples or people's partners or kids sometimes, um, unfortunately die in a foreign country. And if there's no, planning around that, what are some tips or advice or strategies you could share with our listeners about how we can go about planning this?
That's a really good one. And I've you know okay, you need to know what the rules again and regulations are in that country. Some countries, they don't bury you, they cremate you, right? So there's a whole process about the body and how it needs to be prepared, and if there are holiday. And I researched this because I was going to put all the detail in the book. It's probably better to do it in an article. But so you need to know the rules and the regulations. How is your embassy going to be able to help you, or your consulate, or that? But it is something. I remember I gave a talk and I mentioned this, and a woman said, "You are so morbid, Lisa. This is horrible." And if you've ever gotten sick abroad, there's another thing I've heard a lot of people say. It is one of the loneliest thing. People forget, because we look at the pictures. When people move abroad, it's usually a purpose, and usually people are working abroad. So they're busy. I remember I was in the hospital. My friends only visited me at night because they were all working. And then I asked the hospital, well, what do people? Oh, well, people usually have their families, and they hire a maid, and then they come and they take care of you, because I didn't know that hospitals in China also don't have cafeterias. So every day I had to order out my own food, which was very odd, right? So you need to kind of prepare. What are the rules? What happens? And I know there's someone who came to one of my seminars in China a couple of years ago. Her husband, he drowned, and I felt so bad for them. I can't imagine dying in a foreign country. Even when I was sick, I remember asking the doctors, well, what happens if I'm on life support? Do you keep me alive? Do you wait till the nearest family member comes? No. Well, no. You don't have family here. And again, I'm usually a solo expat. So I had to think, well, who has my phone number? Do my friends know where my family is? Does my company know where my family is? What's going to happen? How are they going to reach out to my parents? Can your family members get a passport and a visa to come and take care of you? What's going to happen? And unfortunately, I did, especially in China, I did know one or two people who died. And, a lot of times, folks, locals don't like to get involved, which I can understand. It depends on the culture. But you need to think about that. I think the startling one was, again, if I'm on life support or some kind of vegetative state, what do you do? You're going to keep me on life support till my family gets there? And then what's going to happen to my body, right? That's a country where they cremate everybody, right? So morbid, but you got to think about it. And, you can buy the insurance from the companies now for evacuation and crisis management. And you should. I'm taking a long trip in January. That's a lot. Again, it's a line item. It's part of my financial strategy in moving abroad, living abroad, and traveling abroad. What kind of insurance am I going to be getting? And can somebody evacuate me? And what can I do? Nobody wants
Those
to
are
come to.
really valuable tips. Yeah. Yeah. It's, and that's awesome that you include that in your, in your trips abroad. I mean, that's part of your
Yeah, yeah.
planning. Yeah. So hopefully people listening to this will take that into account. So we are almost out of time. So Lisa, I wanted you to share some key tips for folks who are starting their journey abroad or going to move abroad, on what are some things they can implement today in terms of financial planning, and
Mhm.
also in terms of insurance or investment, anything around this topic that we just discussed.
Sure. So okay, so the number one thing is your why. For 2023, I was really big on that, right? I was working with a lot of people and hearing a lot of people move. Oh, I gotta get out of here. I gotta move. What's your why? right? Because every day abroad won't be a sunny day. So what's your why? And then what does your financial life look like now? And what are your financial goals when you're abroad? Because I mean, years can go, I mean, 5 years can go by like that. And do those things align? And then how are you going to manage and mesh your finances in your home and host country? How are they going to work together, right? There are financial apps that won't work in a foreign country, right? Maybe the banks are not able to speak to each other, and that's really that can cause a lot of headaches, right? And that's also where people get caught. Well, I don't want to have to do all that, and I want it to be free, and I want it to be low cost. And I go, just take wire transfers. Moving money is always a key thing that people usually have to do. Wire transfers are a lot of money. I made a lot of money in banking on them. But when I send my money back to the US, I don't care how much it costs. It better be there when it's supposed to be there. Right? So you also need to think about what's important to you. I think we've gotten into this whole thing. Well, I want to move abroad and it's going to be cheaper and it's going to be low cost. And I've never been 30 years in. I've never been on that because I always kind of knew the reality of it. So looking at your financial life and also consultations, like I said, do the research so you're knowing what questions to ask. If you're going to move next December, well, you should be getting your questions together. You've looked at your portfolio or savings or retirement, and write the things down, your sources of income. The other big one, I don't know if I ever mentioned it, Social Security. I totally forgot about that when moving to China until somebody said to me, she was an executive in Singapore and I knew her. And she said, yeah, I've been living here for 10 years. Yeah, I won't get Social Security. Like, whoa, what? And I totally forgot. There's a whole thing for U.S. citizens, permanent residents. There's a whole department, international Social Security. I don't think it's that simplistic. A lot of young folk, well, Social Security is not going to be here. First of all, you don't know that. And most of us, if you've worked in the U.S. for 40 quarters, 10 years, you're already paid in. I don't want to give up what I've put in. So, you need to create your line item. Okay, so these are sources of income, retirement, savings, education, and really do a financial review. And end of the year, December is good because we're going into tax season. But I would do those consultations. Most of the time, they're free. If they're not, and talk to people who are qualified. I like people who've been in the game a while. If you look at my list of that's why it's taken me forever. I go to the websites, I vet, I read the material myself. And usually 9 times out of 10, I can go, I don't think this person really knows what they're talking about in terms of this. And then I put them on my list. Other than that, I just don't. But you need to do like people. One of the other things people complain about, you're talking about investments. They only want to work with people who have a lot of money. I think that's this other thing. I'm moving abroad, so it's cheaper. I don't want to get wealthy. I'm living on $10,000 a year. I don't know. I'm really not with that mindset. And a lot of the investment places for people who live a global lifestyle, sure, they are far and few between. The reason that, and we didn't even really talk about this, they're far and few between. This is still considered a high risk area. You're not going to, and a lot of compliance and scrutiny. I could do a talk just on that because this question comes up all the time. Well, I don't know why the bank is doing this and the bank said that, and I need a mailing address. I really wish people knew the why. Because when you have the why, you can also come up with a strategy. It doesn't help people, they closed my account. What am I going to do now? I'm using my mother's address. You got to have a why and a strategy. So when an emergency or something else happens, maybe it won't work out, but you can at least say, I can go from here. I can go there. So, those are kind of the missing pieces that I still see people not doing. People want quick, easy, right. Even after the last 3 years. I don't understand it. I don't get it. The people, I got to get out of here. You may have heard me say desperation is a cheap perfume. The people get desperate and then, don't get desperate. Just chill.
Okay. No, that's very helpful advice, Lisa, because there's so much we don't know, and we're focused when we move abroad. We're focused on so many other things like the job, and you're going to live, where your kids are going to go to school. It's
right.
how we're going to find friends, and finances take a back seat. and there's
Yeah.
so many moving pieces. Just, you've just touched uh, on a few of them, but it's so I think the first step is really finding a financial advisor. And I know you said you have a list of people that
Mhm.
that you've already vetted, and people can connect
Yeah.
with you and find out. So my last question is, how can people find you and learn more from you, if you'd mind sharing?
Always open at, like I think I said before, a lot of people like to hit me up in the DMs on Facebook or Instagram, which is fine. I'm okay with that. I'm on Instagram, living a global life. I also have my own Facebook group, which I'm trying to grow and I'm trying to do more. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can send me an email at info@livingagloballifestyle.com. I want to start having my seminars and things again now that, they all, I don't know if you heard this, Nina, next year is going to be the year of the faceless brand, where you don't have to be on video and everything all the time. You can just, you know, be talking, or you can just do whatever. You don't have to go live. I think people with Zoom are tired of that. So, but you can find me in those ways, and people will tell you I'm always open to asking questions. Like I said, a lot of people, I have core people who they just DM me. But people have to be open. I still find a lot of people who kind of don't want to, I'm the like, what is that? The bearer of bad news. Oh,
Right.
I don't want to hear about the bad news moving abroad. I only want to hear about the good things. Okay. There are days I'd look out the window in Shanghai and go, I'd really like to be somewhere else, or London. And then I realized, this is a lifestyle and it's a choice that we make. Well, I mean, many of us, I mean, if you're moving for your family or your spouses or partner, I was listening to, you had the woman on talking about the horses. And she said in Germany, a lot of people, I thought that was interesting. I have to ask my friend, they don't move for their spouse's job. I thought that was interesting. Their partner's job. I thought that was interesting. We're here.
Right.
So, those are kind of my ways you can find me. And I hope it's been helpful and informative to people, even people who are already living abroad. Usually they think they have it down pat until something bad happens. Oh, that never
Right.
happened before. Yeah,
Right.
happened.
Now, I've been in the US for 21 years, and I'm still, I'm a citizen, but there's so much I still need to know about, managing finances, and, being, still having one foot in India and then the other foot here in the US, right? So,
Yeah,
and I know there are folks here who've lived in multiple countries, have multiple citizenships. So I don't know if you can have multiple, at least dual citizenship. So it's all
yeah, the
complicated, but
past. So
yeah,
right, right.
yeah, it's
No, it is. It
complicated,
is. It
but it can
is.
be done. It can be done.
Yes.
That's the main thing, right? And you
Yeah.
were talking about the goals, having a goal, like a financial goal. I tell my clients and students on LinkedIn as well, you have to have a goal. If you're on LinkedIn, you just can't show up and decide what am I going to do? Who am I going to connect with? You need to have a strategy. So it's the
Yeah.
same thing with being an expat, right? You have a goal, you have a strategy. If you're moving abroad for a certain reason, finance should play a part in that strategy as well. I think it's so important. And so, with that, Lisa, I want to thank you for being on the show. I
You're
want to
very
thank everyone
welcome. Thank you.
yeah,
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
yeah,
I need
yeah. I
to
could learn so much more from you. But
more.
we again, you have other stuff to do. I do. My alarm went off telling me my daughter has a piano lesson. So I'm sorry about that. And
We'll check on that. Yeah.
yeah, and thank you for being on the show. Thank you for being a founding member of the Expat Woman. I will share a link to those people who want to learn more about becoming members of the Expat Woman, and share the links that Lisa has promised as well to her Facebook group, etc. And
Yes.
I will see you all soon. Have a wonderful holiday season.
All
Bye,
right. You
Lisa.
too. All right.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.